What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with my breakdown of 2025 Spotify Wrapped. I continue to be a big fan of the general concept of rap data, whether it's music, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Duolingo, your reading app, whatever it is. They're processing our data. We're consenting to use the service. Share the findings with us. I find this really interesting, and frankly, I would pay more to have access to more of this of my own listening habits. That said, I did want to break down the global data that was shared, the US data, as well as some K-pop specific genre data, just because I find it interesting. It speaks to broadly the year we had in music in terms of the popular commercial side of things. So let's kind of jump right in here. Top 10 albums globally. What stands out most right away is that Bad Bunny is able to get 2 albums on this list. Of course, number 1 being his new album from the beginning of the year, Debutar Mas Fotos, makes a lot of sense. The fact that released at the very beginning of the year, thus had all this time to be consumed, and he has previously topped these lists, kind of a lot that it was there. But the fact that Un Verano Sin Ti from several years ago is also number 10 just speaks to his dominance, right? This is why he's headlining the Super Bowl for the people not smart enough to put that together. Number 9 is Kendrick Lamar's GNX, which did come out in the fall of last year, so I think speaks to just its general popularity. Number 8 being Morgan Wallen. I think that's quite notable because it speaks to his global appeal. Him being on a list for the United States goes without saying, but the fact that his dominance expands on a global scale as well, I think is pretty telling. He is by far the face of country music. Number 7, Alex Warren having an album on this list. We know how big his song Ordinary was, but to have his album here too, he is a massive breakout. Number 6, Lady Gaga's Mayhem, big artist, new album this year, makes a lot of sense it's here. Number 5 is Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet, which is interesting because she released a newer album this year at the end of August, Man's Best Friend. But I guess the first almost 8 months of Short and Sweet's consumption data outgrossed, Man's Best Friend. Short and Sweet definitely was a more popular album, but it's pretty cool to see that disparity there. SZA's SOS Deluxe, it did come out at the very end of last year in December. Still an older album though, but SZA's been a dominant streaming force, so it's not a complete shock. Billie Eilish though, being all the way up at number 3 from an album that came out in the middle of 2024. I think frankly that speaks to, of course, her massive popularity. That's not a surprise, but it speaks to the fact that there were not a lot of big new albums this year. The fact that she's all the way up at number 3. And then number 2, the K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack. Not a surprise to see it here. Only Bad Bunny was consumed more. Speaks for itself. Looking at the artist global chart, of course, this factors in all of the artist's entire catalog in the year, not just an individual album. Some familiar faces, but also some newcomers. Number 10 is Fuerza Regida. That's a regional Mexican band out of Mexico, of course. Regional Mexican music has been significant, has been represented on these lists before. Of course, Peso Pluma most famously, right? With generally regional Mexican, Corridos Tumbados, the general expansion of Latin music beyond traditional reggaeton. We're seeing that all the time, right? But to have a new group here, right? Not Peso Pluma, not Grupo Frontera, but Fuerza Regida cracked his list. Again, just speaks to how dominant that type of music continues to be. Number 9 is Arjit Singh, who is an Indian singer, specifically Hindi. I do not know much about him, but I think that is notable because Indian music is not really consumed too much outside of the subcontinent. It's not consumed too much beyond Indian listeners, at the very least. And also, given that, there's 20 official languages in India, not everyone who is Indian listens to Hindi music. Also pretty significant that he's able to crack this list. So he is a massive force, clearly. Number 8, Ariana Grande. No new album this year. She did have the Eternal Sunshine Deluxe. Eternal Sunshine was early 2024. It just speaks to her catalog. She's a massive artist and just a little bit more, popping up from those deluxe tracks, the Wicked cycle. That's kind of all it takes to have her still be here. Same thing with Bruno Mars, right? Obviously his catalog performs so well, but he has only really 2 singles of note in the past 2 years, right? Die With a Smile with Lady Gaga and Apate with Rosé, but those are both massive, massive tracks. So that with his catalog, that's why he's number 7. Kendrick's album showed up. The rest of his catalog makes sense that he's here. Same thing with Billy at 5. Drake is here at 4, even though he didn't have an album crack the list. He did release an album this year with, Sexy Songs for You, a bunch of other singles, right? Nokia was big, Central C feature. But Drake is just such a consistently dominant streaming performer with his catalog. Same thing with The Weeknd here at number 3. The Weeknd did release another album at the beginning of the year as well, but even without that album, The Weeknd would have still been here somewhere. Same thing with Taylor Swift, who did not have an album on that list. Life of a Showgirl only came out in October, not a ton of time to really crack the code. I would expect Life of a Showgirl to make the 2026 list, almost certainly. But Taylor, just like Bad Bunny at 1, a mainstay on this list at this point. Just these are the biggest artists in the world. And lastly, we have the top 10 global songs. A lot of familiar faces here. I think this chart really shows you how down 2025 was on the new music front. You have 2 Billie Eilish songs that came out in the middle of 2024 on this list, including Birds of a Feather all the way up at number 2. On top of that, number 1 is Die With a Smile, a song that came out in the middle of 2024. The fact that nothing newer could pass those, I think, is pretty notable, honestly. And of course, it goes without saying that Spotify data is not the be-all, end-all. Playlist placement is what drives a lot of this, right? So it's not a completely organic thing, but we're still going to react to it nonetheless. Rosé's Apathy being here number 3, that's significant because, of course, that song came out in October, but just took a huge life of its own, right? The Bruno effect kicked in. Alex Warren's Ordinary, number 4. Somber's Back to Friends at number 6. The 2 massive, out of nowhere breakouts they're represented here. That's So True from Gracie Abrams at number 9. That came out in the fall of last year on that deluxe reissue, but that's a big placement for her. Golden, number 7, the biggest K-pop Demon Hunter song of the year, not a surprise. A Kendrick and SZA collab song from GNX being here, not a surprise. So yeah, I think this, if anything, makes mostly good sense. It just kind of shows that there wasn't actually a song quite as big as some old faithful type songs with Die With a Smile and Birds of a Feather, 2 billion stream type songs. So looking at the US data specifically real quick, just songs and artists. Looking at songs, I would not have guessed that No One Noticed by the Marias would have made it all the way here. They do have the Grammy nomination in progress right now, but that's pretty cool. Pink Pony Club being the one Chapel Roan song that went the farthest. That's pretty cool. I think it kind of speaks to the fact that Chapel's album that obviously dominated in 2024, that album had like a new song take hold and be like the top song several times. And things like Pink Pony Club has kind of rounded out into form and taken that crown for good, it feels like. A lot of overlap here, though, with the global songs list. Timeless, the Weeknd Cardi song being here is cool. I think that works kind of on 2 fronts. You have the Weeknd's catalog appeal, just massive broad fan base alongside all the Playboi Carti fans, so pretty cool. And then TV Off from Kendrick and Lefty Gunplay, one of my favorite songs off GNX. Really cool to see that all the way up here at number 5. I mean, that's a complete banger. I'm really happy about that. And then the artist data, there's a lot of familiar names. Kanye being here at number 10, truly off the strength of his catalog. No new official music this year. The Vulture stuff was last year. That's legit for sure. Tyler's here at number 9. He had an album at the end of last year, then one in the beginning of this year. Love to see that. Zach Bryan here at number 8. Of course, not as big as Morgan Wallen, but still a massive force here in massive force in country. And then it's everyone else that you expect, right? SZA, Weeknd, Bad Bunny, Kendrick, Wallen, Drake, Taylor. Like those are the biggest artists. No Bruno Mars here in the top 10. I guess that jumps out a little bit, but obviously he's been representing the global list a ton. No Gaga here on the US chart, despite having her album crack the global chart. Same thing with Ariana Grande. But yeah, nothing really too shocking here. So now I'm going to move on to the K-pop data, which I thought was really interesting. So here's the global top 10 for K-pop artists. Number 1 being BTS. Not a surprise, I guess, but no new music from them, of course, as a group in this year, but just speaks to the really broad, wide fan base that they have, that they could still maintain this crown during the hiatus, right? Really significant. Stray Kids being at number 2, very cool. Jennie at number 3, Rosé at number 4, love to see that. Blackpink still being here at 7 with only one new song last year, speaks a lot to their success. Huntrix up at 5, but Huntrix actually, K-pop Demon Hunters, Huntrix being all the way down number 5 globally, very interesting to me. The fact that the other 4 are ahead. Jungkook being here at number 8. That solo album was a little while ago at this point, right? 7, obviously a massive track, but Jungkook having just catalog dominance to crack this list, I think is pretty notable. Twice here at number 6. I mean, Twice had their best year ever, probably, right? Not a surprise. Happy to see that. And Hypen here at number 9. I mean, after BTS and Stray Kids, they're right there in terms of male groups. But then, kind of surprising to me is number 10 is Cat's Eye on the global stage. You know, I know Cat's Eye has taken off pretty well in the United States, but to have made the global list, I think is pretty notable, right? Especially because like none of those new songs are like, you know, amazing tracks to me, right? Gabriella, Gnarly, etc. I continue to find them interesting to watch, but I was not expecting this much consumption. And looking at the further data that they showed for 11 through 20, notably more soloists come up: Jimin at 11, Jin at 13, Lisa at 14, J-Hope at 18. aespa only at 17. That's a bit lower than I would have expected. I believe they were higher last year, but Rich Man didn't quite hit nearly as much as, you know, the Whiplash Armageddon double punch of 2024 did. New Jeans at 16, actually ahead of aespa this year on the global chart. That says a lot, in my opinion. Really hoping New Jeans comeback, works out in the new year. And Le Sserafim at number 12. I think they are definitely very global, which makes a lot of sense that they're this high. And then Saja Boys as a separate entity from Huntrix is actually at 20. So shout out K-pop Demon Hunters. The global K-pop songs, a lot of similar names. Apate being at number 1, actually ahead of Golden. You know, that was probably a 50-50 bet, but cool to see that there. Obviously, you got a lot more K-pop Demon Hunters in this top 10, right? Your Idol, Soda Pop, and How It's Done. That's 4 in the top 10. Number 3 being Jimin's Who from the Muse album. Considering that song did not come out in 2025, I find that very interesting. 7 from Jungkook, also here at 8. I mean, these are seemingly strong catalog K-pop tracks at this point. Like Jenny, getting all the way up to number 5, very cool. Not my favorite song off Ruby, but I'm glad to see her here. Jin having something off Echo get here as well, again, speaks to just how significant that BTS fandom is. Gabriella from Cat's Eye, all the way at number 10. Again, not something I would have expected. And then further down this list, number 11 is What It Sounds Like, another Demon Hunter song. Number 14 is Free. Number 15 is Takedown. So they have, 5 in the top 20 overall. Crazy. Blackpink's new single Jump was at 12. 3D, Jungkook and Jack Harlow, another Jungkook older track at 18. Toxic Till the End, Rose's second song at 20. Good list overall. I'm happy with it. And the reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to look at the specific data between K-pop artist consumption in Korea versus the global consumption and see how that's different. There's some pretty noticeable changes here, right? So looking at the artist chart here and the graphics in Korean, but number 1 is actually Jimin. You know, we saw some of his older songs on there. Jimin has massive catalog appeal, clearly, especially back home. Number 2 is Lim Young-woon, someone I'm not super familiar with. Number 3 is Jin. Number 4 is Jungkook. So that's 3 BTS soloists on this list this year. Number 6 is G-Dragon. Makes a lot of sense. He had a new album come out this year, a big comeback. Followed right behind. Number 7 is Big Bang. Those are artists that are definitely bigger back home than they necessarily are in the global sense, just because of when they debuted in terms of the maturation of K-pop abroad. Not super surprising. aespa, though, all the way up at number 8 when you look at just the Korea chart. And New Jeans still there at number 9 on the Korea chart. Number 5 is Plave. And number 10 is Day 6. I really just find that kind of disparity interesting and different, just because obviously the global appeal, the globalism of K-pop music, and not just K-pop, but other genres as well. We talk about all the time, right? African music, Latino music, etc. That diaspora is happening, but that doesn't mean that everyone is in unison in terms of what they're necessarily listening to. And you see that here with the songs. I mean, Jimin has 2 songs from the old album here at number 1 and number 6, Who and Be Mine. Jin has a new track at number 2, Don't Say You Love Me. Jungkook 7 all the way at number 3, Staying Next to You all the way up at number 5. So half of the chart is BTS solo tracks, and only one of those is actually a song from this past year. That should say it all right there. And actually more than half the track, because I forgot number 4 is V's Winter Ahead. So 6 out of 10 is a BTS solo track, and none of them are new. And then number 7, number 9, number 10 are all Lim Young-woon songs. Number 8 is Plave's Dash. And that's your top 10 in Korea. Very different from what you would have expected when you look at those global charts we looked at in the beginning. And then, yeah, not surprisingly, but looking at the album chart here, which I don't have up, but Jimin's Muse was the number 1 K-pop album in Korea. Number 2 was Jungkook's Golden. Number 3 was Jin's Echo. K-pop Demon Hunters comes in at number 4. Jenny's Ruby got in at number 10 there. Let me know, though, what did you make of 2025 Spotify Wrapped? Did anything surprise you? Was there something you expected the global populace to listen to in a degree that they actually didn't when we look at this data? Let me know what you thought. And for more music reviews and music breakdowns, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.